get high, but baby, if you want, he'll go down low. Doing a podcast on a random Thursday night. Girl, this blow, he's gonna make you feel alright. I know the manager, he knows what's going down. He'll make you laugh, but he damn sure is not a clown. I know the manager, and this man, he's got clout. He's gonna make you scream, you know he'll make you shout. He's gonna make you scream, he'll make you shout. I know the manager, yeah.
Okay.
Alright, now we're back, and it's like we're never here. Alright, welcome to another episode of I Know the Manager. We're sitting here in a hotel room with Mike Kaplan.
Mike Kaplan, that's me.
And
Kasey Holt.
Kasey, I knew the last name. I was like, I just don't want to say the last name. I was like, Holt.
Yeah. Mike Kaplan and Holt.
Yeah.
Holt, Kasey.
Yeah. Like, she's like Cher or Madonna. Yeah. Just, one name will do.
Yeah.
Holt up.
See, like, my last name would do because it's just Rambo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So it's like, oh, Rambo. And everybody's key question is, have you lived up to that name? I'm like, not at all.
Have you murdered many people?
Yeah.
Do you wear... I wear a bandana once in a while.
Yeah. And I work out on occasion, so...
Is Rambo that's your given name?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, Rambo.
So were you born after the movie, or...
Yeah, and it's funny because my dad's name, and no one ever believes me, but his name was John Rambo.
Okay. He was born before the movie.
Yeah, but, well, yeah.
They named the movie after him, pretty much.
So that's always been weird, I'm like...
Understood. Yeah. Kasey Holt.
Kasey Holt. I got it now. I got it.
If this recording messes up and we have to start again, you'll be golden.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had Mike on for episode 15. If I remember correctly, that was right after my disengagement.
Oh, that sounds fair.
Yeah. Not with Mike.
Yeah, no. We were never engaged.
Yeah.
Disengagement from an engagement.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. How long were you engaged again?
Probably like 3 months. It was too soon. It was like we were together 9 months altogether, and then I was like,
and 3 of those months were the engagement.
So it was like, I don't know what I was thinking. Now I'm just like, since I've had a talk, like since we did the podcast, I had a lot of time to think and collect my thoughts, like where I want to go. And marriage is not the best thing for me, probably.
Are you guys still friends?
Nope. I've attempted to, but we clash, and we haven't seen each other in a while. But it's just best that we don't communicate or try to. Maybe 5 years from now, you know what I mean? That would be great. But I just know the last time we tried, which was maybe 6 or 7 months ago, it was pretty much like we were in a relationship. It was just like nothing. It was just fighting still. I was like, we should not communicate. So.
Got it.
Yeah, since then I was like, marriage and relationships are probably not the best for me, you know.
Marriage and relationships.
But relationships
Yeah, a legally binding piece of paper that says that we're going to stay together, and also just being with people.
Yeah.
Communicating, being friendly. Yeah. I keep to myself.
Yeah.
I have people on my podcast.
Yeah. I like to chill in my room.
You're young. That's a great baseline of no expectation.
Yeah.
You're not looking for anything, and that way, if something happens, you don't have to have a rule that says, oh well, I'm very bad with things.
Yeah.
Things and people don't work for me.
Yeah.
Not so good with the nouns.
Yeah. It's like comedy and podcast work. I'm gonna stick to what I'm good at.
Absolutely. Like you can do places.
I can do places.
Yeah. I can now definitely move from a place to another place, especially if there are people at one of the places.
Yeah, but I just don't talk to them. I'm just like
wave.
Yeah, I just wave.
Let the record show Curtis was waving.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes I forget. Like, oh, they can't see me.
Yeah. Oh, but you can. I feel like people got that something was happening.
Yeah.
That's 6 months is a short amount of time to know what you're to plan the future.
Yeah.
You can have hopes, of course, but in the whole first year sometimes can be, by the end of a year, we've been together over a year, so And we were right. We were right about how we felt earlier on, but we didn't make any decisions to, this right now you're talking to us on the middle of Kasey's move across the country.
Yeah.
To move in with me and to be with me, living in the same place where we weren't. She was living in LA and I've been living in New York. And when we first met, we talked about, early on we talked about the idea that, hey, it'd be nice if, we keep being together, to be together, habitat-wise. That's how we put it exactly. And habitat-wise, we'd like to be together.
Yeah.
Will you habitate with me? But we figured, arbitrarily, or if maybe not arbitrarily, after a year is, around the time that, if you're with a person and you start, the chemicals sort of start wearing off and, the lust that, can happen, sort of the new relationship energy of the first few months or 6 months or a year. If you still want to be together after that, then you're like, okay, we're heading in the right direction. So we decided not to do anything drastic until after a year. And so now here we are, after a year.
That's pretty smart.
Acting drastically.
And isn't there more chemicals after marriage? There's a thing where it's new and the feelings are I don't know how to explain it. Okay.
Honeymoon period?
Yeah, the honeymoon period. See, I would have known that if I would have went.
But yeah, you're bad with relationships. Yeah. It's fine. You don't have to come up with any of these things.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of sort of levels and layers and different plateaus that can happen.
Yeah.
It's some people, get together and they'll mistake that initial spark for this is it forever, and some people are right. Some people happen to be it does work out. Some people they're like, well, I'm with my high school sweetheart for 50 years. Well, good. Most people with their high school sweetheart stop being with them and never see them again. Or oh yeah, imagine. All I know about my high school sweetheart is she liked Sonic Youth. That's what I remember, and her brother was on the tennis team with me. Those are not enough to make a long-lasting relationship.
Yeah. I live better with women than we're not in a relationship, but I can live with a female or a male. But typically, since usually right now, I just moved in with a female, and it's the last female I lived with, we had no problems whatsoever. You know what I mean? So it seems like that kind of relationship can exist in my life.
People aren't constantly drawing dicks on your head when you fall asleep. And, slapping actual dicks on your head. You're
doing the circle below the waist thing.
Oh yeah. There's not as much sex and violence. Yeah. So that's nice. Yeah.
So how's the tour? When did the tour start?
About a week ago.
Okay.
I flew out to LA 9 days ago, and then 1 week ago exactly, we drove from LA to Tucson. That's where the first leg was, and then we drove 12 hours from Tucson to Austin.
Okay.
And then from Austin to Lafayette, Louisiana, then to New Orleans, and then to here. So we're about, time-wise, halfway done, and then in a few days we'll be in New York, and then I have a couple other shows. But then, end of the month, beginning of July, we're recording this in late June for people who want to have all the information, or for people who don't. Yeah, you have it now anyway. Sorry, I know it.
Keep up with time.
Yep, you can't be ignorant anymore. You got to try. Can try to forget it, but you won't. It was June. So July of 2015, we will be living in New York together.
How's this been for you? As far as I just want to get there. Are you I just want to get there?
Honestly, no.
She doesn't want to get there at all anymore. She's like, I'm done. Let's have the tour forever. I live in a swamp.
Oh, God. When, before we started, I think it was Mike's mom who was like, it's good that you're going to take a trip together to see if you can actually live together, to stand each other. And, this whole trip has been so nice because I don't feel tired. I'm having a great time. I love it.
Yeah, good.
It's cementing the idea that moving to New York was a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get there, it's also, the idea that obviously we've spent a week together. If I would go visit Kasey, or a couple weeks, or if she would come to New York to visit me, but those would be vacations. And so in a sense, this is also kind of like a vacation, but it's one where we are, not really capable of escaping each other for, if we have to drive 12 hours together one day, like, we're like, well, I'll be in the back seat with all
my
nope, I
stuff.
can't. Yeah, with all of my belongings. So
My peanuts.
you sit up here. Yeah, can I have one of those? I'm trying to have some alone time. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, tonight after we do this, Kasey might, like, go to the gym or tomorrow morning swim in the pool, and I might not be, like, we have times when we could read a book separately or, be on our computers, but, when we're living together in New York, like, obviously we will spend the nights together that we do because we live there and want to, but also, like, during the days or nights, whatever, we don't have to go all the same places all the same time like we do on the tour. So, like, the tour is like the, like the it's like pressing your arm against a doorway. You ever stand in a door and you press your wrists against it, and then when you step out of it, then your wrists just float up easily. That's like what living together in New York will be like. Floating up easily. Compared to, like, it's fine. It's fun to press your hands against the doorway because you're like, oh, what's gonna be like when I stop doing that? Pretty good. Oh, hey, woo, lion arms.
If it ever gets weird at the house, we're going on tour again.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, when I tour, I travel about half the time-ish. I mean, for the past year, when Kasey was living in L.A., I would go extra to L.A., like I would try to have reasons to go there to, do TV shows or meetings or podcasts or, I was in a friend's movie. It was always, like, great to get to have reasons to go to LA for professional and personal reasons. And now, I think it'll also, similarly, I will, if I didn't ever travel, I think, not like we would get sick of each other being in the same place, because New York is a cool, big city with a lot of stuff, and we will be able to, and will have our own lives and own interests and activities, but, like, when we want to, like I'm not going to hang out with you when we're in LA, when we're in New York, you're on your own. But, obviously, we'll be able to spend the time that we want to together or separate. And then when I go away on tour, or if Kasey joins a band and she goes away on tour or what have you, like, then we'll have... It's nice... It'll be nice to be the reverse of what it's been for the past year, where we, like, see each other for a week, and then we're like, how long was it? Now we're going to not see each other for a month? Oh, no. Like, now it'll be like, we might see each other for, like, 3 weeks, and then, now I'm going to go away for 3 days, and then I'll come back. So it'll be nice to have the same, like, reuniting after missing each other is a really nice feeling. But also being, having the status quo be that we're together instead of that we're not together will also be a real nice feeling.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're in a band. Are you looking for a band? Are you in a band? What do you play?
I play violin, and when I get to New York, I'll be looking for bands and or possibly teaching, but I kind of want to try just gigging and making it work that way first.
Is there a lot of bands there? Do you know if there?
There's
New York?
tons of music.
Yeah, there's like, it's a city full of, like 8 million people or more, whatever, so, I don't know how many people you need for a band, so it's like at least 2, so probably like 4 million bands. And then Kasey will add one, so she could join like a couple of them maybe. But I know a ton of comedians, and then like sort of adjacent to that, like sometimes I'll do shows with I opened for a solo musician named Julian Villard once. Like, he likes having comedians like open for him or on shows with him. And so, like there's all these people who I know, some people who do comedy music, so they know, like, more non-comedy musicians. And, so yeah, we'll be on the lookout.
Yeah.
On the listen out.
Okay. Yeah, you just post something up and then boom. 5
Yeah.
minutes later.
Yeah, make like those little tabs.
Yeah.
Be like, have violin.
Not creepy dudes.
Yeah. Ladies?
I never had much luck with those. I used to make them when I was like 16 in my neighborhood, and I'd say, violin lessons, $10 an hour, or whatever it was.
And they didn't do that?
Nobody called me.
Everybody else was like, very expensive.
Yeah, you should have done it with $100 an hour, then all you need is get one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my brother made the same ones for mowing people's lawns, and he got it right away.
Everybody
wanted it.
I mean, I guess someone could argue that mowing a lawn is not, more necessary, like, than the arts,
I guess so, but I feel like some of the people who had him mow their lawns also had kids, that could have taken violin lessons.
She could have hired the.
Or they could have had their own kid mow the lawn. Like.
Oh yeah. Hey,
either way.
You should have had your brother go over there and be like, now, I know I came here to mow the lawn, but may I make a different suggestion? Take the money you were going to give me, give it to my sister, have your kid mow the lawn, and you say that you're paying your kid in violin lessons.
Yeah. Or just do a 2-for-1 deal, you know, like $8 more.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Go back in time. Do it. Yeah, I think, at the end of a person mowing your lawn, though, you have, like, a nice-looking lawn. At the end of a violin lesson, sometimes you still have a kid who can't play the violin. Yeah, not saying you're not a good teacher.
Instant results.
Sometimes you're teaching a tone deaf. Do you ever have kids that just won't be good, or can anybody improve?
I've never felt that way about any of my students, just because I've seen so many of them improve a lot. But when I started, I remember taking over a teacher who was leaving. I took over her class, and she was telling me a little bit about some of the kids, and one of them, she was like, this one, she's never going to be a violinist, let's face it. And that was, like, so heartbreaking to me. So I tried to give that student in particular the most attention, and she's stuck with it for the last 3 years that I've been teaching her.
That's
awesome.
That's really great, because I think in a psychology class, I think we read, there's like a famous study where teachers are told that a class was split, like, basically they split up a class arbitrarily, but they told the teachers that, like, these were the, like, achievers or blossomers, the kids who were, like, worth spending your attention on, and the other ones were, like, the burnouts or whatever, the ones that, forget about these. But at the beginning of the year, the kids it was all evenly split. They were all the same, like, level of learning capacity based on their previous record. But then by the end of the year, because the teachers were told that, they did see that shift. So because the teachers were like, oh, these are the ones that'll benefit from my attention, then I'll give them my attention, and then they did benefit. And then the other ones that they didn't give as much attention to didn't benefit, so they did create that divide by the end. Yeah. And so you sort of recreated that with when she's like, don't spend your time on this one, but you did, and it worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really satisfying. And there's another thing, like, with discipline, the kids that are trouble students, quotations, I've seen a lot of music teachers, like, give them the easy part so that they don't cause any more trouble, but that ends up creating more of a problem for the rest of the class, because now they get bored. Because trouble kids are often really smart, and they're just bored. Yeah. So what I used to do was give them, like, either make them my assistant and have them, like, check, you pass out the stickers at the end of the class, and they love that. Or give them the most difficult part. Give them the most difficult part, or, like, have them walk around the class. Is everybody in the right position? Is everybody doing the right thing? And they all step up. Like, they, like, really step into the role of being.
That reminds me of our friend Kasey and I have a friend Chris Duffy, who is he's a comedian and a really, really funny, nice guy who used to be a teacher. And I think these are two stories. One from like a teacher who he knew, who she was like the best teacher that he knew, and she would never say that they were problem students. She would call them the students who need more love. Yeah. And that, like, there was some book that had this methodology of, like, if a kid behaves in a way that you don't want, that you don't get mad at them, you don't yell at them for doing the wrong thing. You'd say to them something like, I just feel like you're not acting like yourself. And that way, even if it's not true, you're like, that's exactly who that kid is. But if you tell them that's not like them, everybody wants to conceive of themselves as, like, good in some way, like, a good person, a good whatever. Like, everybody's not like, I'm a rebel. You know what I mean? Like and so the kids are like, oh, I guess that's not like me. And then that would make them, over the course of time, be like, yeah, I want to do things they at least want to be like them. I want to be like me. I don't want to not be like me. What did I do that's not like me? I'll be like me.
I don't want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
He just got in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's in trouble? No, I'm me. Me.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, any teachers out there listening, there's some tips for you.
Yeah.
Make your kids who need more love your assistants and tell them they're not themselves.
He'll accept cash donations or by PayPal.
Absolutely. Buy some CDs. And if you have a band, let Kasey join.
Yeah. But if you're like a crap band, like don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a crap band's just a band that needs more love. You can be an assistant to another band. You pass out the stickers.
Yeah.
That'll be the name of your band. Pass out the stickers, you abbreviate it, POTS.
Yeah. So you have to be really patient doing that. Do you have to be patient as a teacher? Like, I don't think I could teach. Like, I do some self-help stuff, and I'm patient with this one particular thing, but everything else I'm just like, nope, I want it now. And
that's just yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, me, I can handle this.
Yeah.
Can you do this? I'm in charge.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it does require patience, but it never really even occurs to me because I just go in and do my job. I go in and teach the violin.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had a class full of like 27 fourth graders at one point, and I would go there on Fridays, and the brother of the main teacher who was visiting, when they went out to recess after I was packing up and getting ready to leave, he was like, "Man, I don't know how you do it. That must require so much patience." And I was like, I guess so, but also, like, I'm not there to be patient. Like,
yeah.
I guess you just have to, I don't know. I always just think of it as, I'm here to do a job, I'm going to do the job, and if it's not working for them, how else can I do it?
It's like being a comedian. You go on stage, you're like, I know what I'm going to do, and like usually, you're like, here's the things that generally work, and then sometimes you'll have an audience or a student who's like, not for me, and you're like, well, you're just an audience that needs more love, and you try to figure it out, you try to have workarounds, like, you don't become not yourself.
Yeah,
like,
it's more like a puzzle or a game than it is like this trying job.
Yeah.
I mean, I do understand that sometimes, like, for certain subjects, like, there are, standardized tests and, things that need to be, like, taken. Like, there was that thing recently, the Atlanta teachers who were, found to be, like, forging or whatever, like, doing something wrong with their students' tests to make it seem like they were better because they're under this gun, they're under this pressure to deliver these results. Whereas, like, when I taught guitar lessons to kids at a summer camp, and, like, if the kid didn't know how to play the guitar at the end, like, that was usually on them. Like, I'm like, here's what you do. And, like, some kids would come back the next day and be like, I got it, what's next? And then by the end of the summer, they knew everything I knew. And I'm like, well, they learned everything because they cared about it. I could have just, they would have done it on their own, even, like, if they could have. And then some kids come because their parents wanted them to, or they think that they want to. They think that the guitar is cool, but they don't practice it. And so, like, every week, because I would see in them what I saw in myself when I took violin lessons, like, because sometimes I wouldn't practice. Certainly I wouldn't always practice as much as I could have, or quote-unquote should have, because I wasn't, it wasn't my chosen passion. Like, when I started teaching myself guitar, that was really fun, because I'm like, I don't have to do this, I want to do this. But, like, the violin, I was made to do it. And so I feel like I know my teacher was every week, she was like, okay, let's just, let's pick it up where we left off, and, like, let's see did you do it? And, like, then maybe I would, like, sight read a new thing pretty well. Like, I learned how to be a pretty good sight reader, but if she could tell the difference between whether I had studied what I was supposed to do. Like, I wasn't supposed to be looking at it for the first time now. I was supposed to be, having practiced it, worked on it for the whole week. And so, like, when kids would come, I could tell that they hadn't. I'm like, you didn't learn the 3 chords? The only thing that I told you to do a week? I mean, I didn't tell you to do it. I'm just like, if you want to play the guitar, here's how to do it. Yeah. And then they're like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, you don't have to apologize to me. Like, if you want to apologize to yourself, you're welcome to. You just, like, don't apologize. Just do it, or don't. Yeah. And you'll learn it or you won't.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Like anything, like right now I'm taking Tai Chi lessons, and on the tour I haven't had as much time, like we've been driving most of the day, so some days I've like practiced a little bit, and I'm like, I'm not going to apologize to my teacher when I get back, But I am thinking for myself, I'm like, I like doing it. Like, it's for a reason. I like being, doing this physical. It's exercise. It's meditative. It's connected. It's like something that's sort of out of my comfort zone. Like, there's all these reasons that I like doing it. But also, if I have a day or a couple days where I'm too busy to do it, it's not worth beating myself up about. I'm just like, well, I'll do it when I can. And are there other things that are more important that I'm doing instead, or are there things that are less important? Like, should I watch three Netflix shows, or should I watch 2 Netflix, or can I do it while I'm watching a Netflix show?
Yeah.
That's the ideal.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
That's a very adult mindset, though. Like, kids that are learning an instrument because their parents put them in there, I don't think have that way of thinking yet. So for a lot of them, they do have to be pushed into, this is how you play the guitar. Why didn't you practice? You're supposed to practice every week. Oh man, I didn't practice. Then they start.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, for me, it's sort of like this. If there were, I was being paid the same regardless at this summer camp, and like, it's not my style to be like, and I didn't think it was my place. I'm not gonna get angry at them.
Yeah.
I would say to them, like, I would say, like, look, if you want to learn, you have to do it. Like, I can't make you do it. I'm not gonna yell at you for not doing it, but just, I would say, like, if you don't do it, you won't be good at it. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to do it if you want to do it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's kind of the simplest thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I also don't know, like, I'm conflicted about, like, if I always thought about, like, if I had kids, would I make them take violin lessons or take, piano lessons or guitar or something, because I was made to and I didn't like it, but then eventually, 10, 15 years later, I did like learning how to play the guitar on my own, teaching myself, and it was those unwanted initial lessons that that made it easier for me. Like, oh, I'm glad I learned the language of music, unbeknownst, like begrudgingly, like throwing tantrums. I'm glad my mom did make me do that. Like, it's sort of like, you gain, whenever there's a tragedy or something, and some good comes out of it, like, there are people probably who, met because of 9/11. Like, a horrendous thing happens, like thousands of lives are lost, but, a rescue worker meets somebody else that they wouldn't have met, and then they're married, and they have a beautiful family and a beautiful love, and, like, kind of, it's a messed up kind of thing if you think about it exactly like, thank goodness for 9/11, or we wouldn't, they would have had their lives, like, I don't believe there's just one person for every person, maybe they would have, I think they would both be like, I would hope, be like, if we could make it so that we never met, and then also thousands of people didn't lose their lives, and this terrible tragedy could have been averted. But the fact is, you can't go back and undo it. All the things that happened, the bad happened, and you try to make as much good out of it as possible. And that is an analogy to something I was talking about.
No, I get that analogy, because like now I'm doing comedy, but like before comedy, I did a podcast, but before podcast, I did YouTube videos. So it's all like, kind of just led one thing to another. And I would have never gotten to comedy if it wasn't for the podcast, because I finally wanted to do a live one. So I just reached out to somebody and they're like, yeah, you can do it after this open mic. And I'm glad I disagreed to that, because it had been like 1 a.m. and no one would have showed up. So, but I kept going to this open mic, like checking out the venue, and I would just sit there and like, oh, they're doing comedy, this is cool. And I would just sit there on this crappy chair, it was just wood, and it hurt after like 30 minutes, and I sit there for 4 hours just staring at everybody. And then like a month or two later, I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then I just wrote one day at work, and then I was like, I'm doing comedy now. And then I went up there, and then I never stopped since.
Sweet. That's like the same thing, like the tragedy of 9/11 compared to like you're sitting in that chair and it hurt, and
because it did.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm gonna do something about this, and then you go back in time and stop 9/11.
Yeah. Now I sit on the other side where they got cushion seats.
Like, oh, hey, that's the cushy comedian seats.
There used to be couches over there. I'm like, and even once I started comedy, like for 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, I'm not sitting over there. I'm not breaking. And then finally I was like, look, guys, let's just migrate over here with the rest of everybody else.
Guys, I remembered why I brought up 9/11. It's I was comparing it to my not enjoying playing the violin when I was 4. 4 through like 14. But then, you know, the people getting married was my playing the guitar. But you know, I would be maybe happier if none of the tragedy ever happened. Like, I mean, who knows what I would have done, you know? Like, maybe I would have found comedy sooner. Maybe I never would have. Maybe, like, I definitely think it is good to introduce, like, if I had a kid, I'd probably, like, introduce them to the different arts that existed and be like, hey, do you want to paint? Do you want to play a thing? Do you want to, you know, act? Do you want to dance? Do you want, you know... Like, these are all the things that exist, and, like, show them, like, cool versions of all of those.
Notice you left out comedy. He's like, don't take my stage time.
You won't, you're a child. You won't understand comedy at all until way later. I do think that, I mean, it's the rare, you know, young child who is good at comedy. I did some workshops at the summer camp that I worked at with some children who were like, some kids were like, you know, like the youngest there was like 11 or 12, and that is like, some 11 and 12-year-olds like don't really know, like, you know, everybody has things they find funny, but sometimes you'd be like, and they'd be like, how do I write a joke? And you're like, well, what do you think is funny? And they'd just tell you a thing that they saw that they thought was funny. I'm like, okay, but like, what about not a movie? Like, in, you know, in real life, have you ever said anything that made people laugh? And they're like, I quote this movie. And you're like, okay, well, just wait a couple of years. And but also there's adults that don't know how to do it as well. So maybe, you know, it's not, you know, it's not just one thing or another. But then there were some like 12-year-olds that the very first year that I did it, that were, I'm like, oh, you're funnier than many adults. And now they're adults, and they're still doing comedy. Some of them.
I think there was a comic. He has to be 18 now. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know. I guess he started when he was 16. He's done a few shows up here while he was 17, but I think he just moved to New York.
Okay.
I think. Not 100% sure.
I'll check when I'm back.
Yeah, Michael Fitz.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it. Sounds like a name.
Except the Fitz part. It sounds
bad. Oh, yeah. Michael doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about, like, if you had a kid and you wanted them to find something that they liked, and, like, practically speaking, that's a great idea, but also it takes up time to
try all those things.
All of those things. And I've found that the kids that I see, like, that just jump from hobby to hobby, it's like a popcorn thing, and they never actually develop any skills. And I think that it would be good for parents who want their kids to do that, to instill the idea that if you really want to get good at something, you need to stick with it, and it requires a little bit of perseverance and discipline. Like, jumping from one thing after it starts to get difficult, you're not going to learn anything.
I understand. I think you're definitely right. But I would just say, do the parents then just pick the thing? Or in order to pick the thing, like, do you say, like, kid, pick a thing, here are the options, and then the kid picks one, and you're like, and now you're locked into this forever. That's kind of like what I felt happened to me.
Oh. Well, that's, you know, sad.
Yeah, you pick the thing. Like, I mean, I legitimately remember my mom, like, asking me, like, do you want to play an instrument? And I was like, sure, I don't know, like, yeah, why not, you know?
Yeah.
And then she's like, all right, here it is. And then, like, later I was like, but I don't like it. And she's like, too bad, you said yes. You are doing it forever.
If I were a parent, I would say, you know, wait till they're at least, like, 5 or 6, so that they can have this understanding, like, okay, I'm going to pick something and it will be a commitment. Just like sports teams. When I played sports, I played soccer and softball and a little bit of hockey, and my parents, like, sometimes I wouldn't want to go to practice. And they would tell me before I got, you know, put your cleats on, you're going to practice, I paid for this, you made a commitment. This was your commitment, you follow through. And I think that was a great thing that they did for me, because once I started practicing, it was fun. You know, it's a bunch of girls my age, it's real fun. But they always told me, are you know, remember last season when you started complaining about going to practice? Is that going to happen this time? Remember, this is a commitment. You got to stick with it. If we're going to sign you up, we're going to pay $75. You know? So I think it would be a good idea to, you know, tell your kids, if you're going to sign up for something that you like, you know, you're not going to be able to quit. So make sure that you like it, because we're gonna force you to stay.
Or your brother's gonna have to mow lawns forever. Yeah, because my mom was basically like, I always went. The only reference I can do to that is like, mom would I'd want to skateboard, and then a few months later, like you said, I would want to do something else. Because when it got hard, I'd just be like, this isn't for me, and it's not my thing. But but then like I got crazy with a bunch of drugs, and then I just stopped doing everything. And now I don't.
Really good at the drugs.
Yeah, really good. I'm great at doing drugs.
That's what I love. Sticking with it.
Yeah.
Persevere.
Yeah. And then like I got clean, so then I was like, well, what am I gonna do now? Because at that point I lost all hobbies and stuff. But she always was like, anytime I ever wanted to do something, she was like, go do it. And like I remember like she bought me my first skateboard. She'd buy me like if I wanted to get into this, she would buy me whatever. Because it always takes money to get into a hobby. And then, like, I got into drugs. I'm like, Mom, I don't need your help. I'll figure out how to get them. You can't walk up to a mom. Mom, need money. So, but then, like, now, like, I guess I've, like you were saying, like, the last few years I've been able to, like, commit to something. Like, Mom was never like, you need to commit to this. And I don't know if she would have said that, like, for me. I would have just probably been like, I'm not committing. I'm doing the opposite. Like it just how because I'm like a rebel. Like not now. Now I'm just like, you're right, Mom. I probably should have listened to you a long time ago.
But I mean, you have to take your own journey, Like,
yeah.
And I think the thing is, like, obviously, when you do get to be an adult, hopefully you realize that you find the thing that you love and you do it, even when it is, difficult. Like we were earlier in the tour, we were in Tucson, and a friend we were having dinner with a friend who doesn't do comedy anymore, and he was like talking sort of like fondly, nostalgically about. He's like, man, I remember like having a great time doing it, but I would only have fun doing it like when it was going well, and I think that you have to, in order to do it, you have to love it even when it's not going well. And I think there's also people who don't love it at all, but just like they're compelled to do it. Like I do it, I don't love it, even when it does go well.
Yeah, I have an aunt. I have 3 aunts, and one of them, she does everything to the extreme, and she has a PhD in chemistry. And I don't even think she likes chemistry. She just went to school to be extreme and went all the way.
Her parents were like, we paid $75 for this PhD.
And now I'm mowing lawns.
Yeah, we're putting some chemicals on the lawns, and they are looking great. I learned about them with my PhD. That is really crazy. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't work with chemistry.
Nothing.
Did she ever do anything? Like, she got out of college and was like, did she do anything with chemistry at all? No,
she's just like, I did it.
Yep.
Next thing.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes learning for its own sake can be worthwhile and of value. But yeah, it's like Kasey and I have talked about sometimes the difference between finite and infinite games, and like where a finite game is one where like you finish it, somebody wins, somebody loses, like a hand of poker, or like a tournament, the end, a winner, or like a baseball game, it ends. It's a finite game, whereas like an infinite game is like catch or frisbee, or like a game where you're just like you the goal of the game is to keep playing the game. Like you're not like trying to, there is no winning the game. Like every time you throw it, you're winning. Every time you catch it, you're winning. It's like the goal in life is to try and figure out what your infinite game is, that you're like music or comedy. It's like that's why when people are like what's your goal? Like where do you want to be in 5 years? I'm like, still doing comedy.
Yeah.
Like I want the wheels to still be turning. Like, but do you want a career as like a movie star or on a TV? You want a sitcom? Do you want even to be like, obviously when you start out, you're like, you see the marks of like the prestigious marks of success. Like, I want to be at the Comedy Cellar in New York. I want to be at the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. I want to be on Letterman. I want to be on Conan, The Tonight Show. Whatever, all these things that, like, once you are at a place where you can do them and you do them, you're like, well, I did do them. Yeah. I did them, and and like now you're not like, well, I'm done. Yeah. I did it. Yeah. I finished comedy.
Yeah.
Like you're like, well, I just keep doing. Have we talked about? Do you know the expression? The Zen koan involving chop wood, carry water. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, and then after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's just like once you're like, oh, I got it. Now what? Just keep doing the stuff. Yeah. You're not like, well, that's it.
Because that's how you would keep that.
Yeah. And then, and perhaps the chopping wood and carrying water after enlightenment is all now, like, you are sort of filled with, like, you know, it's not just the same as before. You know, like, when you start, it's like when you start doing comedy, people, like, and you know, younger comedians will now, like, when I was a younger comedian, I would be, like, reading books and, like, asking older comedians, like, oh, how does this work? How do you do that? How do you do this? And, like, people, like, there's younger comedians that ask me after shows or whatever, write to me and say, like, what advice would you give? Mm-hmm. And, like, the advice, the most important advice only is, like, just write and perform as much as you can, mm-hmm. chop wood and carry water, and, like, it's like when you're a little kid and you're like, and they're like, I want to be a grown up, and like, what's it like? And you're like, well, you when you're there, like you'll know how things go when you're an adult. Like, I can't tell you until you are the thing, until you reach the place. Like, I can tell you that you will understand, but until you can understand, you won't understand. You won't, and then, like, eventually, you know, you're a comedian 10 years in, and you're like, oh yeah, that was correct. Seinfeld was right. Just work. Yeah. Just do comedy. Keep chopping wood. Keep carrying water, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then even when you feel like, you know, you're never the best at it, you're never done improving, unless your brain starts declining. You're like, oh, I guess I'm done being. Now I'll just be a worse comedian, or a different one. Yeah,
one in a nursing home.
Yeah, and the best and the nurse. But yeah, it's just a matter of. Like, there's no end game. There's no end point. There's no, like, oh, well, now I've made enough money, so I can just sit. Yeah. I don't want to do that. Like, I legitimately, you know, I'm happy to get to continue, you know, you can play the next level. Like, I was just who was talking today? It must have been, it was somebody on Pete Holmes' podcast. We were listening in the car. And he was talking about, like, if some... Oh, yeah, it's great. You made it weird. Check it out, everybody. After you listen to all of mine and all of Curtis's. Yeah. But the idea that, like, there could be these, like, you know, video games that you could play. Like, if you were alive forever. Like, I think it was... I don't remember the exact scenario, but it was like, would you play a game that ended, or would you play a game that never ended? Mm-hmm. And I think the idea of that thing was like, oh, you don't want to, like, do you want to live forever? Like, the idea was you would pick a one that would have an ending at some point. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, I feel like that's not necessarily the case when you're talking about from this perspective. I feel like I just want to keep playing this game. You know, I can stop whenever I want to, mm-hmm. but, like, there is no... You know, there's no end boss. You know, it's like Tetris or whatever. It just keeps going until you're dead.
Yeah, it's like Conan's another boss, and then you got
yeah. Eventually, you know, you're like, and you think there are these things that you're like, oh, it's the top of the mountain, and you get to the half-hour Comedy Central special, and then from there you see, oh, a bunch of people have hour specials. You know, okay, oh, and now maybe if you do want, you know, you see like Louis having like the Holy Grail. If that is what you want to do, be like, oh, I just make, you know, these short films like that nobody tells me what to do. I just do whatever I want to do, and then they show it on TV, and I get to put in my comedian friends and work with amazing actors and directors and writers, and you know, so until you're, and like he has people that he looks up to, and like, you know, sees that he wants to, you know, like maybe he wants to be like directing, you know, lots of movies, writing, and, you know, who knows? Like, it's always great to be, like, I feel like some people look at, like, other people, and they're like, oh, look what I wonder what they wish they were accomplishing. Mm-hmm. And maybe they do wish that, but I think they are also hopefully grateful for, and I'm sure that, you know, most people are, like, grateful and appreciative for what they have accomplished. And, you know, it's, you know, it's an important balance to strike. Like, you don't want to languish. Yeah. But you also don't want to so you don't want to be like, oh, no, I got so more of the future. You know, you don't want to be stuck in the future or the past.
Yeah. Did you hear the Mark Maron podcast today?
With Obama?
Yeah.
Yeah, we listened to that on the drive. Yes.
Dude, that was epic.
Yeah, that guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. But he was like, there's snipers. And
oh, yeah.
I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. There are snipers on the hotel roof as well, but for us right now.
Yeah, right now.
That's just, you know, welcome to Alabama.
Yeah. They're up there all the time. Yeah. It's not because of...
Yeah. Hey, snipers! Yeah. Yeah, that's, so, well, now Obama has done a podcast, so, let's see who gets him next.
Yeah, I made a joke. Today. Like, when he's out of office, I get him next.
Yeah.
I can't get him while he's in office. I'm not that good.
But yeah, no, he's, it seemed like he had a good time.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Everybody's doing that controversial, I don't know. There was a lot of stuff about the word.
Oh,
you know,
sure.
and I was like, I don't know.
I saw a really funny tweet about, they were like, what's the most racist thing? A sitting president who is half black using the N-word in context? Is it the fact that 12 U.S. presidents owned slaves?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Or that, 4 were members of the KKK or something like that?
Yeah.
And the answer is not the first one.
Yeah. It's like the least likely.
And there's a useful distinction that I heard only like in the past year or so, but I think is valuable. Like when people talk about using a word, be like, hey, that when you use that word, it's hurtful even in any context. Say some people would say, but the idea that there's a distinction between using a word and mentioning a word. Like if you're like, hey, we shouldn't be using this word because in these circumstances, in these contexts, it is harmful and can be like destructive and counterproductive. But in order to have an intellectual, academic, reasonable, philosophical, ideological discussion about the word, you have to be able to at least like write the word. You have to know what word you're talking about. So you have to be able to mention the word in certain limited contexts. I mean, because even Louis has that great joke about the phrase the N-word, and like now, like when we say that, we know what word we're talking about, and so in a sense, like why not? Like why not say the word when you're talking about it like that? If it's Kamau Bell, W. Kamau Bell is a very funny, great comedian. Had a show called Totally Biased on FX.
Oh yeah.
And Kamau has a great joke that I talk about with my friend Zach Sherwin frequently, because Zach got to open for Kamau a bunch while he was gearing up to tape this new, I think, special or album, or both. So I don't know what it's called, but check out whatever comes out next from Kamau. Kamau is really amazing, and he's a black man who discusses race a bunch. And one of his jokes is about the concept is he's like, white people. My white friends are always asking me like, when is it okay for a white person to say the N-word? And then he's like, well, I always tell them what I really believe, which is that it's whenever you're okay with dealing with the consequences of saying the N-word. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, so we shouldn't say it? It's like, no, you can say it if you can deal with the consequences. Yeah. And then he's just like, does anybody want to say it?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. He's a funny guy. Yeah, and then he yells, does anybody want to say it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the same thing like with everything and like it's so crazy the way like my newest interpretation, and this might not even be that new, of like when people hear a black person use the word and they're like, well, if we're all equal, then I should also be able to use it. Okay, a white person can use it too. And that's like the most childish attitude because what if I think these are the same people who probably like if you're like complain about their mother. But then if you say something negative about their mother, like, you can't say that about my mother. Yeah. Only I can say that about my mother. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying about black people, too.
Yeah.
That's your M word.
Yeah.
Mother. Yeah. So, yeah, context is important.
She got anything you want to plug? This will drop Thursday.
Okay. Well, then there's a couple days left of the... we'll be basically in New York, but there's... June 26th, I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. June 20th, which I think is Friday. June 27th is Saturday in somewhere near Albany, New York. Everything is on my website forever. Mike Kaplan, MyQKaplan.com. I've been on the tour and blogging about the tour. Kasey's been taking a lot of photos and putting them on Instagram, so you should follow Kasey on Instagram at Kasey C. Holt, Kasey C. Holt, and it's that on Twitter, and mine, Mike Kaplan at all the things, Twitter, iTunes, like my albums are there, my podcast, Hang Out With Me, is there. It's also at KeithandTheGirl.com/hang. It's on the Keith and the Girl Network. And then my special's on Netflix, so that's a place you can see things, you can buy my albums, you can do all the things, you just plug my name into the internet and you'll find it.
Yeah, Google that.
And look for Kasey in the band that she's in and let her in a band.
You want to plug it?
Hire me.
Check out her band, pass out the stickers. And don't pan it. Pots, no pans.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having us, guys.
Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all being on it. Yeah, anytime I can ever get y'all on, I will have you.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure.
Happy to do it.
And y'all are going to safe travel, y'all are going to live it up, and then
Oh, yeah.
if y'all have any problems, just go back on tour.
We know we can thrive on tour together.
Yeah.
Yeah, tour together.
Alright, slide it.
I know the manager, his name is Curtis Blow. He don't get high, but baby, if you want, he'll go down low. Doing a podcast on a random Thursday night. Curtis Blow, he's gonna make you feel alright. I know the manager, he knows what's going down. He'll make you laugh, but he damn sure is not a clown. I know the manager, and this man, he's got clout. He's gonna make you scream, you know he'll make you shout. He's gonna make you scream, he'll make you shout. I know the manager.